How's it going, everybody? Matt here again from East Coast Sabres. It's been a while, but we're coming back to do the long-awaited review and overview of the Maker Props Studio Graflex replica. This is the stainless steel The Force Awakens version. They do have a Fulmer version for the original trilogy that we'll be releasing soon. I don't think at the time of this video that it's out yet, but I believe it is coming. So that one also looks incredibly good. So stay tuned for that. But for today, we're going to be working on the Force Awakens stainless steel version. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. First up is the box, and the presentation is very well done. Nice thick cardboard, nice sturdy box. Got the nice Graflex logo sticker with the Maker Prop Studios logo on it. On the side you have the Graflex stamping with Sequel Trilogy Edition. Very nicely packaged. Very nice presentation. The box opens from the side and lifts up, and then once open we have Maker Prop Studios business card. Nice thick sturdy business card. Thank you for your purchase. Always like it when I get a business card with a package. It's just, for some reason, for me, it shows that next level of dedication to the customer. We have just some blue tissue paper, and then we've got some bubble wrap, and I will get rid of this box. And then we have the flash itself. Now, the flash itself, let me zoom in here, is very nice. It's very well made. It's obviously, you know, very sturdy. It's stainless steel after all, instead of brass. So, very, it's not, you know, flimsy. Not that we've ever had any replica Graflex that was flimsy. But this is very nicely done, very well made. Overall, I'm very happy with the way that this replica came out. Not that I had anything to do with the production of it, but as a fan and as a consumer, I'm very pleased with the way it came out. So it is the Force Awakens version, so it does come with the stainless steel clamp cover that has been already installed and glued on. That's the way it comes. It is the smooth version, and it does have the etched. It's a form of etching and stamping, I believe. I'm not exactly sure the method of it, but it is very, very smooth, very well done. And from what I understand, it was made identical to the way that the ones in The Force Awakens were actually created. So that's cool, and it just looks very well done. You get the smooth end cap for the Force Awakens version, no stamping, so no need to buy a smooth pommel cap. The glass eye also comes pre-sanded, revealing the brass underneath, which is accurate to the Force Awakens. Beer tab, which is a dull stainless steel, so it's sturdy but also has that dull coloring, which is what you want, as well as the slide switch. The bunny ears are a chrome color, well, not chrome color, but they are chrome. They're a nice chrome, and they match the style, I guess you could say, of chroming that vintages have. So it's not a perfect mirrored chrome. They're not textured, they're smooth, but they do have, you can see kind of in the surface of it where it does reflect, but it's not a perfect mirror chrome, which a mirror chrome is what you don't want. They're very well done. They're the proper height. They're a nice distance apart. The ring going around is brushed, so that's very nice. The overall quality of the hilt itself is very well done. The raised area around the button in the glass eye is round like it's supposed to be, whereas some of the older Romans and 2.0s were more oval. This is the correct round, and they're very well done. They're not, there's no pitting, there's no bubbling. Very nice, very smooth, very crisp. So I'm very happy with that. Like all my reviews, I'm just going to start at the top, at the emitter, and I'm just going to work my way down, and we'll talk about the good, the bad, compare it to a vintage. I actually have a vintage on my bench right now that I've disassembled for a conversion, so that's this was a perfect time to do the review of this one, so we have a good piece to compare it to. So starting at the emitter, let's just go over the emitter curve. The edges of the emitter are very smooth. The plating is very well done. I believe that the final version that was shipping out for these stainless steel ones I don't believe they had any plating on them. I believe they're just pure stainless steel, whereas this one I believe was more of a prototype type of thing where it's actually stainless steel along with some stainless steel plating over it, I believe. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way that it was described to me. So the S-curve on the emitter is very clean. No edges, no sharpness, nothing like that. Very well done. I did notice very, very subtly, you really have to look for it, but like all my reviews, I do things very honestly. I don't hide any cons. We talk about things very openly. We weigh the good and the bad, and we look at it subjectively. So one thing I did notice on the curve, and it's very subtle, very hard to see, is in the corners of the curve, you have a slight, it's not a 100% perfect flow. It kind of has a sharper angle here and here, but it's so subtle I almost didn't notice it. And at first glance, I mean from a distance, and at first glance you can't see it. So if we compare that to a vintage shell, you can see what I mean, sort of, I guess. This one is just a little smoother in that it's just a very flowing couple of angles, whereas this one just has a couple points in it where it just doesn't flow quite as smoothly. But as I said, I really had to look at it for a second in order to pick that up. And it's certainly not anything that I'm worried about, and I'm a perfectionist when it comes to things like this, and especially the Graflex in general, so I'm not too worried about it. Moving down, as I already talked about, the bunny ears are very well done. The S-curve, the square in the top is perfectly placed. If we compare it to a vintage, just the right size, just the right placement, no problems there. The glass eye is a nice, well-made replica, spot on to a vintage. As I said, the Force Awakens stainless steel version does come with the knurling already laid down, which is a nice feature because some people don't want or don't have the means to do that themselves. The red button is actually one of my favorite features of this replica because it is, without a doubt, the best replica button I've ever seen. If we compare this to a vintage button, vintage on the left, replica on the right, it's nearly identical. The profile is exactly the same. The knurling is exactly the same. He even got, if I can capture this, the machining lines on the upper part are identical. The radius of the lip is the same. Even the machining marks on the inside bevel are the same. And one thing that's incredibly hard to mimic, and I didn't even know it was possible without actually weathering them individually, was it's kind of like the imperfections in the knurling match that of a vintage. So I am very, very happy with this red button because I have yet to see someone replicate a vintage button so accurately. The color of the plastic is nearly identical, but with vintages, the coloring of this button can vary from year to year, from make to make, whether it be Fulmers with a patent, Fulmer without a patent, Graflex ink. It can vary. So compared to the one that I currently have in my hand, it's damn near identical. The only thing I will say about this button that makes it very good for a replica is that it doesn't have the standard plunger style underneath it. It is designed for use as a lightsaber. So this has a piece of plastic, same as the upper part. It might even be one piece. I'm not sure. I haven't taken it apart. But this is perfectly designed to work with a micro tactile switch. So you don't have to add, some people were adding a Lego piece, some people were adding just a little piece of plastic. I machined my own little adapters out of aluminum to use under these buttons. You don't have to do that with the Maker Prop Studio one because it's the perfect length already. And for those curious, this is the switch that I'm referring to. These little micro tactile switches. These are what I use like with the Solo Tool blade holder. And with the blade holder, it's the perfect height that it just goes down, and right at the end of its travel, it clicks the button. So there's no modification, there's no anything, and it's good to go right from the beginning. So this is a fantastic red button. It's such a tiny detail, but I love it. It's perfect. Going back to the rest of the flash, as I said, the beer tab is very nice. It's flat steel, perfect finish. It's nice and sturdy. It's not going to bend and get destroyed easily unless you abuse it. It is held in place with just a, hard to get a shot of it here, but there inside you can see it's held in place with just a little rivet. So if you wanted to remove it, which if you're buying this version, you're doing the Force Awakens, so there shouldn't be a reason to remove the beer tab. The slide switch, as I said, is very nice. It has the accurate dull plating. I have modified this one slightly so that it moves freely. Otherwise, it does move as a vintage does, which is a more stiff forward and back motion. But when you're using it with a lever style switch, this style lever style switch for auxiliary functions, you want it to be a little looser so that it can you just kind of flip it back, and then the force of the switch itself resets it, so you don't have to manually move it every time. And what I did for that was you just put it in the forward position, and then I just take a tiny screwdriver, like a jeweler's screwdriver, and I just very lightly pry up on the front end so that it moves freely. And it works like a charm. The nice thing about this is, unlike a vintage where you have to grind it down on the inside to get it to fit inside the wire channel of a blade holder, this is a completely new design, and hopefully the camera will focus inside there. And you can see that it is, if I can find it on the outside here, it's already installed with a miniature plate on there, so there's no reason to remove it, there's no reason to try something else. And that little arm is the perfect size to engage one of these little switches. And it's the perfect length that with the Stainless Steel blade holder. It's a perfect fit. I've tested this several times and it works perfectly. So that's nice, not having to mess with that. Moving on, as I said, the clamp is very nice. I don't have a problem with the clamp braces, with the clamp lever. The clamp lever is very nice. Everything about the clamp is nice. The stainless steel cover has been glued and bonded onto the clamp itself, so there's no movement. It's not going anywhere. The clamp is high quality. Overall, very, very nice. Moving on to the lower, not much to say about the lower. It's an unstamped Graflex lower. It does the job that it's supposed to do, and it looks the part. It's nice and round. There's no oblong to anything. Sometimes you can get some replicas that are kind of weak in this area where they're separated. This one being stainless steel, it's nice and sturdy, nothing to worry about. Should be easy still to drill through for sound venting and cobalt installation. Going back to the top, one thing I did notice, and I believe this is only a problem with these few prototypes, is that because they do have stainless steel plating on top of the stainless steel, plating is a very difficult thing to get right in large batches. And on this one, it's hard to see on camera, and it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. But I did have some faint plating issues towards the back end here, kind of like right where my thumb is. You can see a transition from more the polished, brushed chrome, and then it's more of a goldish color at the bottom, which is more of the nickel coming through. But it's very, very faint, and the clamp covers it up. So it's not even a problem. And like I said, I believe it's only a problem on, I think there were only less than half a dozen made that had plating over them. So it's not a problem. As you can see, even on camera, it's very difficult to pick up. Maybe in this light you can kind of see just a very slight color difference between this area and this area. But like I said, the clamp covers it, so it's nothing I'm concerned with in the slightest. So the thing that everybody wants to know with these is, will they work with a standard blade holder that's on the market? The short answer to that is yes, though I can't say with anybody else's, but with the Stainless Steel version 1 blade holder, you might need to do a very small modification to make it work perfectly. I ran into one little issue. I've contacted the manufacturer and they're looking into a solution, but it's really not, it's certainly not a game breaker or a deal breaker, I guess you could say, by any stretch, but it is worth noting. So we'll go over that, and I will install one of the blade holders for you. First thing you're going to do is remove the bunny ears. So with this replica, to get the bunny ears off, it is a screw. It's an Allen head screw, but unlike the 2.0s that used kind of crappy hardware that stripped out easily, this one is a good quality screw. It fits the Allen wrench perfectly. So you just remove the screw. It's not threaded into the spacer, but it's actually threaded into this bottom or this backside ear tab. pull the screw out, lightly push the bunny ears out, and there you have it. So just remove the glass eye. It does come with a spring. You may want to remove the spring when you're actually installing it. And here you have your empty shell. And you have your upper half. Well, actually you have the whole Solar's whole blade holder. And you can just slide the upper half in and secure it with a screw. You are going to have to get one of these screws. These replicas do not come with the necessary screw, but it shouldn't be too hard to locate. Of course, the screw is going to be a pain in the ass to put in. Now, of course, when you put one of these in yourself and you're installing it, you're going to have other little contacts in here, where you may have one of the sync pin strips that goes all the way around, and you'll have other things that need to go in with it. For this video, I'm just gonna slide this in like this. So there's the upper half that stays stationary in the blade holder. I mean, in the shell. You have the lower half of the blade holder, and the nice thing is, with this replica, it goes in very loosely and very easily. But I have noticed that once you get more to the top, it gets quite stiff. You can try sanding it down. I'm not sure why it gets tighter inside. I'm not exactly sure, but just a little push and it will line right up. And of course, if you are doing a full reveal chassis, once you're able to hang on to the chassis back here, it won't be a problem to get it in and out. And as I said, the slide switch is able to move freely because the inner tab is perfectly designed to work inside of that wire channel. I've noticed a near perfect alignment of the sync pin holes. On one side it's absolutely perfect, but on the other side you have just a barely misaligned hole. But I'm not counting that as a flaw, because even vintage shells can be slightly misaligned, and not all of them line up perfect from one to the next. So that's not a flaw of this replica. That is a flaw of the Graflex design. For some reason, when they're stamped, when they're cut, it doesn't really matter how you do it, they can shift just ever so slightly. I mean, when you look at how much it's off, come on camera, focus, there we go. It's maybe a millimeter, maybe. So it's really not anything to be concerned with. And you might be able to kind of mess around with it a little bit and split the difference between the two sync pin holes, so that you really can't even notice it at all. So, but like I said, I like to point out everything I see, but I'm not worried about that one bit. The only thing that isn't perfect and that may need some modification to work is for the red button with the blade holder. If I move the beer tab out of the way, you can see that the upper part of the blade holder, the upper part with the lip on it, protrudes into this the hole for the red button by just a little bit in the top and in the side. This quarter of the circle, it protrudes in just a little bit and can cause an issue when installing the red button. Now, of course, actually, you know, I will install it with the beer tab. So just thread the red button into the beer tab, like so. Rotate it back in, and go ahead and thread it back into the shell. Now, as you can see, it tightens into the shell, but it hits that little piece of the blade holder that protrudes into the hole and keeps the button sticking up just a little bit. So if we go ahead and remove the screw, remove this upper piece, and as you can see, without the upper piece in there, this is the lower section, but it's low enough that it doesn't interact with the hole at all. So now we'll go ahead and thread this button back in. And if we try and put this in, you can see that the upper part can't go in all the way because the button is protruding slightly too far and contacts this area right here. So that is kind of a defect in the design of this upper shell, in that this hole isn't perfectly aligned to the blade holder. Of course, the blade holder is made to very tight tolerances, but if you hit it with a Dremel, you can very easily remove just the tiny bit of material necessary. I even have my Dremel here. I'm not going to demonstrate it because I don't need to do this. But if you just take a sanding drum and a Dremel, and let me just redirect this here, and you just hit this upper edge where it protrudes in and where it contacts, and just sand just a little bit away, you will very easily be able to get this to work without a problem. And once this part is installed in the shell, this part never comes out. So even if you grind away a little bit of the metal, revealing the shiny aluminum underneath, it doesn't matter, because once this is installed, this part never comes off, and once the button is back in place, you never see it. Only the lower part of the blade holder is removed during full chassis reveal, and that has no impact on that modification. So there is no reason not to modify this. It would take literally probably less than a minute to do, and it solves that tiny little problem. And as I said, to do a full chassis reveal, the chassis will be attached to this part, and this comes out, and there's no modification necessary on this lower section. So that's cool. As I said, this does work with these little lever action switches. You just get some brass rod or steel rod, whatever you want to use, cut it short, and it just drops right into the pre-drilled holes in the blade holder. And then if we reinstall this upper piece, and if we line it up and insert it like so, I'll just use this as a stop, you have spring-loaded auxiliary switch. So no more having to manually force it front and back. It will now pull it down and then release it, and it spring loads under the pressure of the switch. So it's nice not having to do any modifications to this slide switch to make it work. You simply install the switch and you're good to go. Like I said, I just pried up on it just a little bit to make it a little more free moving. But if you listen carefully, you can actually hear the click. of the switch, so you know that it's engaging, and it automatically, under the pressure of the switch, returns to its off position. So for auxiliary switch, for like blaster block and things like that, that is a very nice feature, rather than having to manually reset it with your thumb every time. So I very much like the design of the slide switch. So overall, I am very happy with the way this replica came out. As I said, there are a few very small, very small flaws that I have contacted Maker Prop Studios already with my pros and cons list, and as I do with all my reviews, I give a thorough overview before I even make the video, alerting them of, not alerting them, but making them aware of what the video is going to contain. So they are aware of them, and yeah, overall, this is a very solid, very nice replica that I can highly recommend to anybody in the market. And Maker's Prop Studio is UK based, so if you're looking for a solid, well-made Graflex replica and you're based in the UK, this is a very good option for you. And as I said, they are coming out with a Fulmer edition for the original trilogy, so keep an eye out for that one. As I said, I don't believe at the time of this video that it's out already. I could be wrong, but I don't think it is. Overall, I'm going to give this a solid 7.5 to 8. I can't really make up my mind. We'll call it an 8 out of 10. As I said, the only real flaws that I can't even say unhappy with, the ones that were just kind of unfortunate, the biggest one just being the way that the red button interacts with the upper piece of the blade holder. But like I said, you just take your sanding drum of a Dremel or a round or half round file and just remove just a little bit. It's not even a lot, it's just a little bit of the material up here, and you're good to go, and the Stainless Steel blade holder will work flawlessly. I can't say whether or not it will have the same issue with, say, a KR Sabres blade holder. I don't have one on hand to try, so I don't know. I don't know about the Graflex shop blade holder or the Romans blade holder. I don't know. All I have on me right now is Stainless Steel, and with a little bit of modification, it can work flawlessly. So overall, this is a very well-made replica. Maker's Prop Studio has fantastic customer service. If you have any questions, feel free to contact them. The owner is a very awesome guy to deal with, very fast at returning messages, very professional, very polite. Overall, this is a fantastic replica, and I highly recommend it. As I said, I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10, and it gets my thumbs up of approval. So thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm hoping to do a review of the Graflex Shop V2 replica I believe it's already shipping. I believe it's been shipping for a couple weeks. I'm hoping to get my hands on one of those because the changes they were making to that looked really good. So hopefully that'll be coming down the pike here pretty soon. Keep an eye out for that one. And as always, thank you for watching, and may the force be with you.